Human trafficking is the trade in humans, most commonly for the purpose of sexual slavery, forced labor, or commercial sexual exploitation for the trafficker or others, or for the extraction of organs or tissues, including surrogacy and ova removal. Slavery can be traced back to the earliest records, such as the Code of Hammurabi in 1760 BC, which refers to it as an established institution. Slavery has been practiced in British North America from early colonial days and was recognized in the 13 colonies at the time of the United States' Declaration of Independence in 1776. After the Revolutionary War, abolitionism gradually spread in the northern states. Slavery is no longer legal anywhere in the world, though human trafficking remains an international problem. An estimated 29.8 million people are living in illegal slavery today.
Human trafficking is believed to be one of the fastest growing criminal industries in the world. It is highly organized in some places, and new crime rings are being erected in others. Between $10 billion and $42 billion may be changing hands. Victims are often controlled through force, fraud, or coercion. It is commonly thought that human trafficking is the smuggling or movement of people. In fact, the crime involves exploitation and control. Human trafficking can be difficult to recognize. Victims may be forced to work as prostitutes, domestic workers, landscapers, in restaurants and bars, as forced panhandlers, in cleaning and janitorial jobs, and nail salons, or in other roles.
Human trafficking can be seen in many locations that are frequented by many people. One such example is the Super Bowl, one of the most popular events of the year. The event causes a surge in sex trafficking to capitalize on the mass gatherings of fans and tourists. In the days leading up to Sunday's game, local law enforcement dedicate tremendous resources to targeting everyone engaged in prostitution. Human trafficking can even be found in commonplace franchises. Police have raided multiple 7-Eleven locations from Virginia to New York to find evidence of human trafficking that apparently has franchise owners smuggling people in from Pakistan to work in stores. It is responsibility of the government to provide adequate security in big events like the Super Bowl and to provide training to these individuals so they are able to recognize victims. The same goes for all stores and franchises.
In New York State, there are no laws which require educating students on the subject of human trafficking. It is the right of the victims and survivors to have their struggles known. They have the right to be helped, and they have the right to be known about. All curricula in schools should implement teachings about human trafficking so that everyone can be well aware of this ubiquitous issue, and a more aware society is a society one step closer to finding ways to fix the problem. It is the government's responsibility to educate its citizens on the issues which plague our society, and human trafficking is one at the forefront. It is also the government's responsibility to provide adequately for those who have been trafficked if they are able to get out, and not to charge them any fines for being victims of trafficking. Awareness for trafficking could be raised by making it mandatory to learn in schools, and also by providing workshops for workers in all job sectors so that they are able to identify and report human trafficking if it occurs in their area.
What steps is the government taking to ensure that the people are safe from human trafficking, and how do they help those who get out?
Okay, so I think there are a lot of steps that the government is taking. I think that in the last 10 or so years, we've seen human trafficking on the map as a more visible issue. I think that we have seen changing laws for the better. We have, and we're still in the process of changing those laws, of improving those laws, so that there are increased penalties for traffickers and for buyers, and we're looking to actually change laws so that victims of trafficking are protected, so that people in prostitution are not prosecuted by the laws, but are treated as victims and are given exit strategies and comprehensive services.
And how do they help those who are able to get out?
So, the government helps people get out by identifying trafficking cases, by recognizing that the people that are trafficked are in fact victims, that they should not be arrested and prosecuted for other crimes such as prostitution, and then providing lots of services, comprehensive services, which is critically important. We need to make sure that there are holistic services that victims are able to access, housing and legal services, whether that means immigration or other legal services, that they're able to vacate convictions if they have convictions while they've been trafficked, and a whole host of other services.
How and where do you find these human trafficking victims?
So you find human trafficking victims everywhere, sadly. Right now we're in New York City, and if you went a few blocks from here, you would probably find that there are people being trafficked, probably many people, young women, girls who are your age, who are being trafficked just 10 blocks south of here. They're probably trafficked in your, in your communities, and in lots of communities throughout the state of New York and throughout the country. And many of those victims are actually American-born. I know that, when people think of trafficking, they think of foreign-born people in faraway places, but sex trafficking is happening here, it's happening in our backyard, and it's happening to many American-born people.
What effects does human trafficking have on victims?
So human trafficking has tremendous effects on victims. A victim of trafficking experiences extraordinary trauma from the trafficking situation. She, and I say she, but it could be a he, she has very often been exposed to extraordinary violence, repeated rape by both traffickers and sex buyers, and a great deal of psychological torture.
Why is human trafficking as broadly displayed in the media as other issues?
That's a good question. So I think 5 years ago that would have been the perfect question, but I think now we are starting to see improvement in the way that the media is portraying trafficking cases. I think that we're starting to see that the media is starting to understand the complexity of the issue in a way that they hadn't before, and I think that within the next couple of years, I think you're going to see. I think you're already seeing a lot of attention to trafficking, but I think you're going to see a more nuanced approach that isn't so black and white. It doesn't use language that's offensive and stigmatizing, and that you're going to see that the media is going to have a better grasp of the issue, and it's going to report more accurately about it.
What are the legal repercussions for people who, the traffickers and the buyers?
Okay, so the legal repercussions, it's a crime. Trafficking and buying sex here in New York State is a crime, and a person who traffics can spend up to 25 years in jail, and in New York, a person who buys sex gets an A misdemeanor and can spend up to a year in jail. Would trafficking decrease
If prostitution was legalized?
if prostitution was legalized? So the very simple answer is that if prostitution was legalized, trafficking would not decrease, but it would increase. And we know that because we've seen what's played out in Amsterdam, right? So in Amsterdam, prostitution is legal, as I'm sure you know, and Amsterdam has become a real failed experiment. We've seen it play out. We know that in Amsterdam, because prostitution is legal, the demand for commercial sex has increased, right? We know that men, mostly men, are coming to Amsterdam to purchase sex, and as a result of the fact that there's a huge amount of demand, what needs to happen? There needs to be supply.